Hey guys, it's Sign here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing another comic book review. Today we're looking at Godzilla vs. Thor by Jason Aaron, Aaron Cooter, and Jesus Abertov, with Joe Sabino as the letterer here. So this is a pretty good book. It feels pretty short compared to the other Godzilla vs. Marvel books, and I think that this is probably the second best one. There's 6 out so far. There's also going to be the Marvel vs. Godzilla universe or whatever it's called. Let me double check that since I have my computer here right behind me now. I can actually look up information as needed, which is pretty awesome. It's called Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. That's the second series of Godzilla books that they're doing with Marvel. This one, Godzilla vs. Thor, is the last in this first run or grouping of books, and I think it is probably the second best. I think it's X-Men, then this one, then Spider-Man, then Hulk, and then I can't remember the other two. I don't know, whatever. But I know for sure the Avengers one is the worst. That one is for sure the worst. However, even though this is probably the second best, I'm not sure that this is necessarily a good story. It doesn't quite work for me, especially because of the beginning. The execution is great. I think Jason Aaron does a great job at really making it sound mythic and awesome, and it also kind of has like a Donny Cates feel to it, which I like. It would have been nice to see Donny Cates write one of these, but I don't think he's back into comics yet after his accident, so I don't know. But this is pretty awesome. I did enjoy it. I thought it was cool. And the way that this works out is kind of odd at the beginning. So it opens up in Japan. We see this woman dressed in red, this red priestess, I guess, and she turns out to be a priestess for the Hand. Now, why is the Hand involved with Thor? I'm not really sure. I don't think that those characters really work in the same, corners of the Marvel Universe. So I thought that was weird. I thought maybe it was a misprint initially, but it turns out that she gathered a bunch of murderers. She thought that Frank Castle was going to be the guy to lead the Hand going forward, but that's not the case. She gathers these murderers, and then she sacrifices them in a ritual to awaken Godzilla. Which is pretty cool. I'm not sure that Godzilla really functions as a murdering machine. Like, Godzilla functions as many things, but he's ultimately a force of nature. And the kind of the reality or the metaphor for the fact that we used atomic bombs and unleashed unholy terror on the world, and Japan specifically. And so I don't necessarily know if tying a ritual to awaken him to murderers is the right thing to do. I feel like it'd be more like a nature ritual that would work, because it is ultimately Godzilla is nature fighting back against humanity for daring to unleash atomic bombs, right? And so I'm not really sure that that worked out for me. I didn't necessarily like that, but it doesn't matter. Days later, Godzilla has been unleashed on Tokyo. He's rampaging and doing his thing. He's destroying the city, and many of these people apparently are praying to God for safety, for life. And so Thor, hearing their prayers, shows up. Again, not really sure that Japanese people would be praying to Thor. So why would he hear them? Although technically this version of Thor is the Allfather, so he might be able to hear them anyways, because he technically is a overcompassing god. I'm not really sure, but he hears their prayers, he answers them, and he uses his powers to push Godzilla into the sky where he can't harm anyone. However, it doesn't quite work, and they keep fighting, and ultimately Godzilla and Thor are destroying the city even worse than Godzilla was doing it by himself. And so Thor swings Mjolnir, opens a Bifrost portal, and uses it to summon Jotunheim's freezing storms through the portal in order to freeze Godzilla. And so Godzilla gets frozen in time, and he becomes this weird ice statue in the middle of Tokyo. As people vie for power over this thing, it's not really quite working out, but it's almost working out. And then suddenly the Red Hand Priestess finds a sliver of the Necro Sword, which is also tied to Null. Although Null doesn't make an appearance here, even though in a previous Godzilla vs. Marvel book, Godzilla does get infected by a symbiote, and so he does become a God symbiote character. which would mean that Null would have something to do with this. And if Godzilla has already interacted with a symbiote, and then in this case he also interacts with another symbiote, shouldn't Null make an appearance, or something should happen in order to make Godzilla kind of more powerful? I'm not really sure. I think that should be the case. However, I guess Jason Aaron's working under his own rules for Thor, which means that doesn't tie in, because I think it was after Jason Aaron wrote that Donny Cates took over, created Null, and then made the Necrosword part of Null. Right? I think that's how that works. I might be wrong there, but I think that's how that works. And so at this point, the Necrosword is still not part of Null. So Godzilla doesn't get the powers of a symbiote from the Necrosword. He gets the powers of Gore the God Butcher. And so it becomes Godzilla the God Butcher, which is cool. I like it. It gives him a new, vaguely black and spiky kind of look, which looks nice. And then, of course, they continue to fight because at this point, Godzilla has moved on from Earth. He's gone up to Asgard and he fucked it up. He destroyed it, very much like Ragnarok. And so Thor, in his anger and the reality that he's the last Asgardian, summons a storm to end all storms. He summons a storm of galaxy large proportions, of galactic proportions, and he summons it and he uses it to take Godzilla down with him to hell. And I don't know how this doesn't destroy all of the universe, but whatever. And so down in hell, their battle still rages on, because in the mythological traditions of the Norse, you are still technically alive, whether you're Hell or in Valhalla. And so they continue their battle even through the kind of heat death of the universe until their eventual rebirth. And it's pretty cool. Like, I really like the concept of it. I love the way in which Godzilla and Thor battle. I just don't like the inclusion of the hand. I don't like the fact that they're ignoring larger lore of the Marvel Universe in order to tie him to Gore the God Butcher instead of Null the Symbiote King or the Symbiote God or whatever. So the issue with this book is not necessarily that the book is bad, because I think the book is actually quite good. The issue is that there's no continuity between any of these books. Now, there was none to begin with. All these happen in different alternate universes, but at the same time, you can't have two things that are related to Null happen independently in the same set of stories, and then not kind of tie them into each other. I think that was a bit of a mistake. I'm not really sure I like that. And so I can't say that this is a perfect book. I think it's nearly perfect. I think it's probably one of the better ones. Definitely top 2. I probably would have put this top 1 if it wasn't for that issue I have with the Necrosword and the symbiote thing not coming up at all, right? I think that if that was included in some way, like maybe Godzilla got taken over by Null instead of by Gore the God Butcher, I would have liked it more. But because that didn't happen, I like it a little bit less than I do. And so this is the second best story. So that's really all there is to say about this. What do you guys think about this one? I think this one was the best, but I want to know what you think. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.